عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا قصة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي غريب الغرباء. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي صاحب الزمان، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن وكعبة الإيمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجا وسهل الله تعالى مخرجا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
सलावत पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत। أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها. قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. كذبت ثمود بتقواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله فسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها.
क्या धुन रही है जंगल में सकीना, अब्बास लेके बाजू या बाबा का सीना। क्या धुन रही है जंगल में सकीना, अब्बास लेके बाजू या बाबा का सीना। कानों से चले गोए और आती दमन में गब्बाए हुई बच्ची ये कहती वन में है को जो मुझको पहुँचता दे मदीना क्या दूँ नहीं है जंगल में सकीना अब्बास लेके बाजू या बाबा का सीना वन से अली असगर को ले आओ मैं बाबा सुने नजर आता है बाही का मेरा झूला असगर के पे है अब मुझको नहीं जीना क्या तू नहीं है जंगल में सकीना अब्बास के बाजू या बाबा का सीना अहमद का नवासे को मारा है मुहर्रम में 40 बारह वो सज्जाद से गरम में तारीख पुकारी है गाँव में का महीना क्या दूँ नहीं है जंगल में सकीना अब्बास के बाजू या बाबा का सीना
बाजार शुमा क्या हाल खैरियत से ठीक ठाक सलवात भेज दें जनाब साहिब मजलिस की फरमाइश थी कि जनाब असगर की शान में एक तो नजब हफंदी साहब का मशहूर मारूफ कलाम एक और सलवात भेज दें मार के क़ुव्वते इस्लाम के जौहर मार के क़ुव्वते इस्लाम के जौहर 6 माह की मुद्दत में क़यामत के बराबर नन्हे से मुजाहिद अली असगर नन्हे से मुजाहिद अली असगर वो मकसद था विलादत का फ़क़त कारे शहादत वो मकसद था विलादत का फ़क़त कारे शहादत और ये बात हुई और किसी को ना मयस्सर नन्हे से मुजाहिद अली असगर ओ यकता है तेरी खूं में डूबी हुई तस्वीर ओ यकता है तेरी खूं में डूबी हुई तस्वीर तारीख दिखाती नहीं ऐसा कोई मंजर नन्हे से मुजाहिद अली असगर और बाबा के सब अंदाज हैं दादा के तरीके बाबा के सब अंदाज हैं, दादा के तरीके। नींद आ गई रेती पे, न तकिया है ना बिस्तर। नन्हे से मुजाहिद अली, असगर अली असगर। और उलझे हुए बालों पे फिदा शामे शबे गम। और उलझे हुए बालों पे फिदा शामे शबे गम। और डूबी हुई नब्ज़ों पे सितारों की निछावर। नन्हे से मुजाहिद अली, असगर अली असगर। और ढलकी हुई गर्दन पे यदुल्लाह के बोसे। और सूखे हुए होठों पे तसद्दुक़ लबे कौसर। नन्हे से मुजाहिद अली, असगर अली असगर। और जिस वक्त हुई मोहर तेरे ज़ख्मे गिलू की। और जिस वक्त हुई मोहर तेरे ज़ख्मे गिलू की। पूरा हुआ शब्बीर के ईसार का दफ्तर। नन्हे से मुजाहिद अली, असगर अली असगर। ओ आराम से सोए शबे आशूर के जाएंगे। आराम से सोए शबे आशूर के जाएंगे। लोरी तुझे देता है तेरा नजमे सुखनवर। नन्हे से मुजाहिद अली, असगर अली असगर। सलवात भी।
बुलंद तरीन सलावत। एक और बुलंद तरीन सलावत। सलाम से पहले 4 मिसरे कर इजाज़त हो। एक और बुलंद तरीन सलावत। इम्तिहाने आशिकी में कैफ पाते हैं हुसैन। इम्तिहाने आशिकी में कैफ पाते हैं हुसैन। इंतहाई मुश्किलों में मुस्कुराते हैं हुसैन। इंतहाई मुश्किलों में मुस्कुराते हैं हुसैन। लाफता इलाली ला सैफिल्ला जुल्फ़िकार ला फता इलाली ला सैफिल्ला जुल्फ़िकार। बढ़ते जाते हैं फरिश्ते पढ़ते जाते हैं हुसैन। इम्तिहाने आशिकी में बुलंद तरीन सलावत। मसाइब के चंद शेर एक और बुलंद तरीन सलावत। आसमां लर्ज़ा ज़मीं कांपी समंदर रोए। आसमां लर्ज़ा ज़मीं कांपी समंदर रोए। कब्र में माँ के लिए जब कब्र में माँ के लिए जब अली असग़र रोए। आसमां लर्ज़ा ज़मीं कांपी समंदर रोए। तन्हा रोती थी 72 को अली की बेटी। तन्हा रोती थी 72 को अली की बेटी। बेरदा जब हुई ज़ैनब तो बेरदा जब हुई ज़ैनब तो 72 रोए। आसमां लर्ज़ा ज़मीं कांपी समंदर रोए। और वक्त रुख़सत जो हुसैन आए दरे ख़ैमा पर। वक्त रुख़सत जो हुसैन आए दरे ख़ैमा पर। शाह ज़ैनब से बहुत देर शाह ज़ैनब से बहुत देर लिपट कर रोए। आसमां लर्ज़ा ज़मीं कांपी समंदर रोए। और ज़िबहा होते हुए सब देख रही थी बहनें। ज़िबहा होते हुए सब देख रही थी बहनें। ये समा देख के मौला ये समा देख के मौला तहे खंजर रोए, और शिमर का खौफ है गर्दन में, रसन भी है बंधी। शिमर का खौफ है गर्दन में, रसन भी है बंधी। अपने बाबा को सकीना, अपने बाबा को सकीना कहाँ जाकर रोए। आसमां लर्ज़ा ज़मीं कांपी, समंदर रोए। और नज़्ह में याद जो भी मारे, मदीना आई। नज़्ह में याद जो भी मारे, मदीना आई। हिचकियाँ बंद गहीं इस तरह, हिचकियाँ बंद गईं इस तरह के अकबर रोए। आसमां लर्ज़ा ज़मीं कांपी, समंदर रोए। कब्र में माँ के लिए जब, कब्र में माँ के लिए जब अली असग़र रोए। आसमां लर्ज़ा ज़मीं कांपी, समंदर रोए। बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु।
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु वो लगा रहे हैं। ठीक है, आगे हो जाओ, थोड़ा सा ऊपर एक बावाज़ बुलंद सलवात। इसको बंद करा नहीं। असगर की लाश के उठाई हुसैन ने, असगर की लाश जब के उठाई हुसैन ने, देखी बगौर अपनी कलाई
हुसैन ने देखी बगौर अपनी कलाई हुसैन ने फिर लाश आसमां को दिखाई हुसैन ने तकरीर ये ज़मीं को सुनाई हुसैन ने तकरीर ये ज़मीं को सुनाई हुसैन ने ले ज़मीन मेरी अमानत संभाल ले मैं सौंपता हूँ अब तुझे बानों के लाल ले ले ज़मीन मेरी अमानत संभाल मैं सौंपता हूँ अब तुझे बानों का लाल ले असगर की लाश जब के सलाम के चंद शेर पर करूँगा, वक्त ज़्यादा हो गया। हुसैन आपको कुदरत सलाम करती है हुसैन आपको कुदरत सलाम करती नबी की पाक शरीयत सलाम करती है हुसैन आपको कुदरत सलाम करती सलाम करते हैं हजरत को औलिया ओ शहीद सलाम करते हैं हजरत को औलिया ओ शहीद अदब से रूहे शहादत सलाम करती है हुसैन आपको कुदरत सलाम करती ज़मीन करबो बला के सितम रसीदों को नजफ की खाक बहसरत सलाम करती है हुसैन आपको कुदरत सलाम करती इमामताज है अपने मकाम में अज़मत पर इमामताज है अपने मकाम में अज़मत पर
कि उनको शान रिसालत सलाम करती है। हुसैन आपको कुदरत सलाम करती है। दमे सुजूद जो कुर्बान हो गए हक पर, उन आबिदों को इबादत सलाम करती है। हुसैन आपको कुदरत सलाम करती है। हुसैन आपको कुदरत। फातिहा। गहवारे से हुसैन जो असगर को ले चले, हाथों पे रख के फिदियाए दावर को ले चले। बादल में शाम के महे अनवर को ले चले। चिल्लाई माँ कहाँ मेरे दिलबर को ले चले। चिल्लाई माँ कहाँ मेरे दिलबर को ले चले। फारिगा भी नहीं हुई अकबर के दाव से, कुछ रोशनी है घर में मेरे इस शराब। कुछ रोशनी है घर में मेरे इस शराब से। झूले से क्यों उठाया के दुखता है मेरा, सोते से क्यों जगा लिया दुखता है मेरा। चादर में क्यों छुपा लिया दुखता है मेरा। सीने से क्यों लगा लिया दुखता है मेरा। सीने से क्यों लगा लिया दुखता है मेरा। अरे विश्वास मुझको आता है क्या देखते हैं, क्यों बार बार इसका गला देखते, क्यों बार बार इसका गला देखते। बानों के इस बयान से घबराए शाह, आखिर करीब फौज के पे आए शाह। बच्चे को रख के हाथों पा चिल्लाए शाह। यावर समझ लो जो तुम्हें समझाए यारो समझ लो जो तुम्हें समझाए शाह। अरे कुछ तो ख्याल चाहिए नन्ही सी जान, बतलाओ क्या कसूर है इस बेज़बान। बतलाओ क्या कसूर है इस बेज़बान। ये सुन के हुर्मुला ने उठाया कमान, ताका खता शोआर ने नन्ही सी जान, मारा खदंग शाह के अबरू कमान, है मिटाया बालों के नामो निशान, है मिटाया बालों के नामो निशान। अरे चिल्लाई मौत है ना तुझको मान, बच्चे ने सहम सहम के हाथों पे जान, बच्चे ने सहम सहम के हाथों पे जान, शहने से वाए शुक्र ज़बां से ना को, चांद अपना ज़ेर खाक छुपा या बसत बुका, तुरबत से उठ के आपने खेमे का रो, लेकिन कदम ना आगे को उठते थे मौत, लेकिन कदम ना आगे को उठते थे मौत। अरे कहते थे क्या कहूँगा जो बच्चे को माँ, बानो जरूर हंसलियों वाले को माँ, बानो जरूर हंसलियों वाले को माँ, बानो वो तेरा हंसलियों वाला गुजर गया, बानो वो तेरी गोद का पाला गुजर गया, बानो वो तेरे घर का उजाला गुजर, बानो वो तेरा हंसलियों वाला गुजर ने, अब वो चौंकते हैं न हरदम मचलते हैं, फिरदौस में वो हूरों की गोदी में पल, फिरदौस में वो हूरों की गोदी में, चिल्लाई बानो हाय मेरा नाम रहू, किन जंगलों में बानो तुम्हें ढूंढने, तुम गुठियों भी घर में हमारे न चलने, खेमे से जाके शक्ल ना माँ को दिखा, खेमे से जाके शक्ल ना माँ को देखा, अरे मुझसे बिछड़ के प्यास के मारे चले, किस माँ की गोद में मेरे प्यारे चले, किस माँ की गोद में मेरे प्यारे चले, गहवारे से हुसैन जो असगर को ले चले।
Salawat. The sponsors of tonight's programs are the families of Mr. and Mrs. Talib Zaidi, Mr. and Mrs. Zagham Zaidi, Mr. and Mrs. Zaki Zaidi, and Mrs. Shazan and Hiba Haider. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumeens of their families. Bismillah. Bismillah. Qul wallahu ahad. Qul wallahu ahad. Qul wallahu ahad. With a loud salawat, I would request those who are sitting on that side to please come over a little bit forward. That way there's a lot of room on this side towards me. Thank you very much. Please come forward, inshallah. Also, I would like you all to please recite 5 times Amma Yujib for the health of the infant Heather. He's going through some health difficulties. Please recite 5 times Amma Yujib for him. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma Yujib mustarra iza da'a wa yakshifu as-su'u. 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 Amma Yujib mustarra iza da'a ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض إلى ما خلا خليلا ما تذكر. For your information, there is a children's program every day here from now till Thursday. So please be here at 7:30. Children of all ages from 4 till 14 or 4 till 24, they're all more than welcome. So please join here with Maulana, inshallah, for their program, inshallah. With a loud salawat, let's welcome Sayyid, inshallah. Salawat. Allah. Thank you.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على إمام القبلتين ونبي الحرمين وأفضل الثقلين وجد الحسن والحسين الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين والذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على صاحب الدعوة النبوية والصولة الحيدرية والاسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والعبادة السجادية والمآثر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم الكاذمية والحجج الردوية والجود الثقفية والنقاوة النقوية والهيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية. اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه. أما بعد، فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: غلبت الروم في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To give our condolences to Fatima al-Zahra salamullahi alayha upon these days where we commemorate the martyrdom of her son Hussein, a louder salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When one examines the Holy Quran, one of the most interesting chapters within the Holy Book in terms of its name is the 30th chapter of the Quran, Surat Ar-Rum. Of course, Ar-Rum is translated as the Romans or the Byzantines. In that time period during the advent of Islam, there were two superpowers of the world neighboring the Arabian Peninsula. On one side, you had the Persians or the Sassanids. On the other side, you had the Romans, who were also called the Byzantines. You see, this place in the Quran, this chapter, is the only place in the Quran where a political event in the life of Rasulullah stemming from outside the Arabian Peninsula is mentioned. And it's mentioned in the context that these two superpowers, the Persians and the Romans, they fought a series of battles until in one battle in the land of Syria, the Persians defeated the Romans. And news had reached Mecca that the Persians were victorious. You know, when this news, it reaches Mecca, the kuffar of Mecca, they began to mock the Muslims and Rasulullah. And they said to them that you are people of the book and the Christians are people of the book. The Persians had no kitab which came down upon them. And in the way our brothers, the Persians, defeated your brothers, the Christians, we will soon defeat you as well. At that moment, the Quran refuted them in the form of a mu'jiza and a miracle. And that miracle is that the Quran gave a prediction or a prophecy of something before it occurred. It says, غُلِبَتِ الرُّومِ. Yes, the Romans have been conquered. وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ فِي بِضْعِ سِنِينَ. In a number of years, though, they will be victorious once again. And we see this reality that the Romans under the ruler Heraclius, they win in the year 627 in the Battle of Nainawa. The reason that I mentioned this introduction is that you find that the Quran refers to the followers of the Prophet Isa alayhi salam, the Christians. And the Quran, it refers to the Roman Empire. In this series, we are examining Imam al-Hussein as the inheritor of the Prophet Jesus, based on the line of the sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, where the sixth Imam says, As-salamu alayka ya warith Isa ruhillah, that salam be upon you, O Hussein, the warith of Isa, the spirit of Allah. You know, out of all of the prophets who are mentioned in Ziyaratul Waritha, there is only one prophet who has had a religion named after him, and that is Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And the Quran refers to the followers of that religion with the word Nasara. You know, the Quran is referring towards the Christians, and these Christians were living in the Islamic State as well. And naturally, if they're living in the Islamic State, you find that they'll have some sort of role in Islamic history, at times for the better, at times for the worse. And that's why the subject of analysis tonight is to examine the role that Christians have played in the history of Islam in order that we can place Imam al-Hussein historically as the inheritor and the warith of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And we'll examine this topic in the following stages. Number one, does the Quran acknowledge that multiple religions can be correct, or does it say that Islam is the only truth? Number two, were there Christians that the Prophet Muhammad encountered, and whom were they? Number three, what is the difference between religious pluralism and social pluralism? And what did Imam Ali say when he saw a Christian man in poverty? Number four, what Christians played a role in the government of Muawiyah and Yazid? Number five, in what ways did the head of Imam al-Hussein give hidayat and guidance to a group of Christians? And number six, which martyr on the day of Ashura came from Christianity to Islam and was martyred alongside Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? And inshallah, we'll analyze this topic through these 6 points after a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, before we come to the crux of this analysis, an important question which is often brought up today, and you would be surprised that there are even Muslims who bring up this question, is that they say, do we have to follow Islam, or is any of the revealed religions sufficient? At the end of the day, Judaism relies on a prophet of Allah, Musa, and Christianity relies on a prophet of God, Isa. If there is a Christian who is a moral individual, he is living his life of morality, he believes in a prophet which we believe in, What is the issue with him being a Christian and us being a Muslim? You know, this thought is called religious pluralism. It states that as long as a religion is revealed by Allah, there is no issue whether it is Islam or it's any other religion. You know, those individuals who follow this school of thought, many are Muslims as well. And they'll use ayat of the Quran that if you examine them from the outward, they may look convincing. But the reality is, when you look at the Quran, you can't just nitpick a verse, but rather you have to look at the Quran as a whole. You know, if I wanted to nitpick a verse, then I could say that we do not have to pray salat anymore. You may say to me, what do you mean we don't have to pray salat? The Quran says, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ, that woe be upon those who pray salat. But you find the reality is that no, you look at the Quran as a whole. That's why Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahj al-Balagha in sermon number 133, he would say, يَنْتِقُ بَعْدُهُ بِبَعْدٍ, that parts of this Quran speak for other parts. وَيَشْهَدُ بَعْدُهُ عَلَى بَعْدٍ, and parts of this Quran are a testimony for other parts of the Quran. You see, those individuals who uphold this thought, that follow any religion, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, the first verse that they bring is chapter 3, verse 19. And that verse, it says, Inna deena in the law al-Islam, that the religion verily in the eyes of Allah is al-Islam. Now you may say that it says Islam over here. How do they argue? They say, number one, that Islam over here is a verb and not a noun. It is not referring to the name of a religion. But what it is saying is submit. Whether you submit through Musa or Isa or Rasulullah, it doesn't matter. As long as it was a prophet and you submit, it is sufficient. Now those individuals will say that when you look at this ayat, it is Islam in the lowercase, not the uppercase. As if Arabic had lowercase and uppercase letters. But the first reply you give towards those individuals, yes. You say, yes, Islam means submission. You know, Amir al-Mu'mineen in the middle of the battle, when a man asks, Ya Ali, what is Islam? Amir al-Mu'mineen summarized it by saying, Al-Islamu huwa taslim, Islam is submission. But submission in every time period has a different form. In the time of Adam, it is to submit to Adam. And in Nuh's time, it's to submit to Nuh. In Isa's time towards Isa, in our time, it is to submit to Rasulullah and the deen of Rasulullah. You know, those individuals who say, follow any religion, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, the biggest attack they are doing is on the nabuwat of Rasulullah. Because they're saying that nabuwat and the prophet of Rasulullah is not a condition and a shart for salvation. So you find this is the first reply. The second reply you give towards them is that when you look at this ayat, right? It says the religion in the eyes of Allah is al-Islam. Over here, it is using alif and lam at the beginning. It is saying a proper noun, the Islam, not a Islam. So it is showing that this Islam is a specific Islam. But the third reply you give to these individuals is that why do you not finish the verse? The verse, it does not end by saying, Inna deena indallahi al-Islam. But it continues. It says, وَمَا اخْتَلَفُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمْ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ. It says those who were given the book, the Christians and the Jews, they differed only after the knowledge had come to them. Only after you delivered your message to Rasulullah, only after that they began to differ out of each other, out of competition and envy. Then the verse it says, وَمَن يَكْفُرْ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ. Number two, those who disbelieve in the signs of Allah, Allah is swift at reckoning. فَإِنْ هَاجُوكَ, and if they argue with you, O Prophet, فَقُلْ أَسْلَمْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّهِ وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي, say to them, O Rasulullah, I and those who follow me have submitted to Allah. And then after that it says, وَقُلْ لِلَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ وَالْأُمِّيِّينَ أَأَسْلَمْتُمْ, have you submitted as well? Over here, those who say that any religion is fine, whether Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, if any religion was fine, why is Rasulullah saying that only I and my followers have submitted to Allah? And number two, why is Rasulullah saying to them, Aslamtum, have you submitted? فَإِنْ أَسْلَمُوا فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا, and if you submit, only then you'll be guided. So you find that this is the third reply to the first ayat. But now the second ayat they use seems even more convincing. And this second ayat is chapter 3, verse number 60, is chapter 2, verse number 62. You know what that ayat it says? It says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who believe. وَالَّذِينَ هَادُوا وَالنَّصَارَى وَالسَّابِئِينَ, and the Jews and the Christians and the Sabians. مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلَهُمْ أَجْرُهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. You know, many youth, they ask about this ayat. It says that those who believe, the Christians, the Jews, the Sabians, if you believe in Allah, number one, and the final day, and the next world, number two, you act righteously, Allah will reward you. There will be no fear and no sorrow on the day of judgment. Now, outwardly, what is this ayat saying? Christian, Jew, Sabian, believer, as long as you believe in Allah and the day of judgment and you act righteously, la khawfun alayhim, there is no fear for you. The first thing that you reply with is that you say, look at the Quran as a whole. When you look at the Quran as a whole, there are many other ayat upon this theme. Another ayat of the Quran is chapter 3, verses 84 and 85. And within that ayat, Allah is saying, Qul, say to them, O Prophet, Amanna billah, that we believe in Allah, wama unzila ilayna, and what has been revealed to us. In other words, the Quran is saying that when it comes to the disbelievers, say to them that we believe in the book which was sent to us. The Quran is showing categorically that that truth which mankind needs to follow involves following the Quran. And after saying that, it says, وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَىٰ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ وَالْأَسْبَاطَ وَمَا أُوتِيَ مُوسَى وَعِيسَى وَالنَّبِيُّونَ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ لَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ. Yes, we believe in what was sent down upon us, but we also believe in what was sent to Ibrahim and Ismail and Yaqub and Isaac and the tribes and what was given to Musa and Isa and the prophets. We do not differentiate between them. And then after that, it says, وَمَن يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَن يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. What does it say? It says those who follow a religion other than Islam, it will not be accepted from them. And they in the hereafter will be amongst those who are losers. You know, this discussion is to theologically establish what truth is. We're not talking about individual Christians and Jews or individual people, but we're saying that what is the barometer of haqq in the Quran? And the barometer of haqq in the Quran is that you believe what was sent down onto Rasulullah. You know, there is another ayat along the same theme. And this is chapter 5, verses 65 and 66. It says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا, that if only the people of the book, they believed and they were pious, لَكَفَّرْنَا عَنْهُمْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ, we would dissolve them of their sins and their mistakes. وَلَا أَدْخَلْنَاهُمْ فِي جَنَّاتِ النَّعِيمِ, and we would cause them to enter paradise. وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ أَقَامُوا التَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ, and if they implemented the Torah, the Injil, if they put their book into practice, وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِمْ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ, and what has been sent to them from their Lord, لَأَقَلُوا مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ وَمِنْ تَحْتِ أَرْجُلِهِمْ, that we would give them so many blessings that they would eat from above and below their feet. So the Quran over here is showing that those who are Christians and Jews, they have to follow the Quran and they have to look at that Torah originally, which contained the mention of Rasulullah. But the second level, those individuals who say that follow any religion, it is sufficient, we ask them that, have you not studied the seerah of Rasulullah? Why would Rasulullah invite others to Islam if it was enough for them to follow Christianity or Judaism? You know, the 8th year after the conquest of Makkah is called Amul Wufud. Wufud means the year of the delegations. Rasulullah would send delegates to different leaders who were not Muslims. And one of the people he sent a delegation to was the leader of Rome at that time. And he said to him, فَإِن تَوَلَّيْتَ, in that letter, that if you turn away, if you reject Islam, فَإِنَّ عَلَيْكَ إِثْمَ الْأَرِيسِيِّينَ, the sins of your subjects are on your shoulder. So if any religion is fine, Rasulullah is sending an invitation. But one point that we need to make is that there is a difference between us saying that every religion is correct and living in harmony. You know, there's a difference between religious pluralism and social pluralism. Social pluralism says that you can live with people of different religions in one area. And we see this in the life of Rasulullah. You know, the kuffar of Makkah made the life of Rasulullah very difficult. That Rasulullah would go to Taif. And when he would go to Taif, they would pelt the Prophet with stones. Rasulullah would preach the message. They would throw garbage on Rasulullah. They would make his life very difficult. You know, when the conquest of Makkah happens, the person who was originally given the flag on that day was Sa'd ibn Ubadah. Sa'd ibn Ubadah on that day, he began shouting that, you know, these Makkans, they caused us difficulties for all these years. Al-yawm yawm al-malhama, that today is the day of vengeance. You know, they went to Rasulullah and they said to Rasulullah, look what your commander is saying, al-yawm yawm al-malhama. Rasulullah says, no, take that standard from him and give it to Ali ibn Abi Talib. And he says, al-yawm yawm al-marhama, that this day is the day of mercy. When you look at the Islamic State, there were Christians in the Islamic State, there were Jews in the Islamic State, that as long as you were not an enemy of the state, you did not commit treason, you were allowed to live within that state peacefully. And you know, the Quran even highlights this concept in an interesting verse. You know, chapter 31 mentions the advice of Luqman. And in that advice, Luqman is saying to his son, what do you do when your parents say do shirk? And it says, فَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي شَيْئًا مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. If your parents, they make you ascribe partners to me, that which you have no knowledge of them, say فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, do not follow them. This is the first command. That there is no religious pluralism. You know, if you are on the deen of Allah, you remain upon the deen of Allah. You say to them, I will not ascribe partners towards Allah. But however, وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا, but within this world, be kind towards them. So on one side, religious pluralism is rejected in this ayat. But this ayat is saying those mushrik parents of yours, if they ascribe partners to Allah, be kind towards them. That even if they're not Muslims, you find that there is a level of harmony that should be there in society. And that's why one of the most famous examples in history of an individual looking at the rights of a non-Muslim is Amir al-Mu'mineen. You know, one day Amir al-Mu'mineen, he sees that there is a Christian man who is begging in the streets of Kufa. So he turns towards his companions and he says to them that why is this man begging? They say, "Oh Ali, this individual has become blind and there is no one to take care of him." You know what Amir al-Mu'mineen says? He says, how strange is it? When this man, this Christian man, when he was young, we used him to build this state and this society. And now when this man is old, there is no one there to support him. You see, this line goes to show that when it comes to living in social equity, Ahlul Bayt didn't look at the religion of an individual. They looked at the character, the quality, the characteristics of that individual. And that's why when you look in the life of Rasulullah, you find that there were a number of encounters of Rasulullah with different Christians. One of the most famous encounters is when Rasulullah was 8 years old, he goes on a journey with Abu Talib alayhi salam. And when he goes on this journey to Syria, there was a Christian monastery because Syria had many Christian monasteries, many individuals were living there, and amongst them there was an individual by the name of Bahira. Bahira, he wouldn't go and meet people. But when Abu Talib and Rasulullah, they're going towards Syria, he sees Rasulullah sits at the side of a tree and he begins to eat from the fruit of that tree. When he sees this, he comes to Abu Talib immediately and he says, "Oh man, who is this? Because I see all of the signs of prophethood within him." Abu Talib says, "Which sign of prophethood do you see?" He says, "I have read in the Torah that none will eat from this tree except for a prophet who will come after Musa." You find this encounter, this individual was a Christian individual who met Rasulullah. Now, another example of a Christian playing a positive role in Islamic history is when the early Makkans were being persecuted, when the early Muslims in Makkah were being persecuted by the kuffar and the disbelievers of Quraysh. You find that a group of 70 or 80 of them, they go towards Abyssinia. And when they go towards Abyssinia, it's stated that the kuffar of Makkah, they send Abdullah ibn Rabi'a and Amr ibn al-As to follow these Muslims. Now the Muslims, they go into the court of the king who was called An-Najashi. And they begin to speak to the Najashi that we have come from a land. And then you find that Abdullah bin Rabi'a, Amr ibn al-As, they bribe their way inside. And they say these individuals are causing discord. Najashi says, how are they causing problems? They reply by saying they have taken people away from the religion of our forefathers. You know, when you look throughout the Quran, the main objection is always that they take us away from the religion of our forefathers. So at that point, you find that Ja'far al-Tayyar, he replies and he says that, "Oh Najashi, we were a group who would fight 40 and 50-year wars. And we would eat of the dirtiest things. We would bury our children alive. But now there has come a man who tells us to respect our parents, to worship Allah, and we follow that man." You know, Amr ibn al-As was a clever individual. And later on, you'll see Amr ibn al-As being used by the Umayyads. This individual, he says that, to his companion, what is the most controversial topic we can bring up? We can bring up the topic of Nabi Isa. Because naturally a Christian will view Isa differently than a Muslim. So he says that, "Oh Najashi, ask these individuals what they believe about Nabi Isa, about Jesus." Ja'far al-Tayyar, he begins to recite the Quran. And he quotes the verses from Surah Maryam, that Jesus within the cradle, he said, قَالَ إِنِّي عَبْدُ اللَّهِ آتَانِيَ الْكِتَابَ وَجَعَلَنِي نَبِيًّا. That I am the servant of Allah, I have been given the books, وَلَمْ يَجْعَلْنِي جَبَّارًا شَقِيًّا, and Allah has not made me a transgressor. At that moment, Najashi, he draws a line in the ground, and he says, the difference between us and you is this line, you can live over here. You see, this Christian man, he gave refuge to the Muslims when their own family members and neighbors didn't give refuge. And the Quran preserves his legacy. Because when these people, they would come back, the Quran, it revealed unto Rasulullah, وَلَا تَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ نَصَارَى. That the closest to the believers in affection are those individuals who say that we are Christians. So on one side, when you examine, there were Christians who had a positive role in the history of Islam. But at the same time, there were also Christians who were individuals that were destroying harmony in Islam as well. And there is no bigger example than the rule of Muawiyah and Yazid. The rule of Muawiyah and Yazid. You know, Syria, as I said, was a land of Christians. Muawiyah's brother was the first commander to come to Syria, and he conquers Syria. After that, Muawiyah is given a 20-year rule over Syria. You know, in those 20 years, who was the most trusted advisor of Muawiyah? An individual by the name of Sarjun. Sarjun was a Christian. You know, the son of Sarjun is actually very famous amongst Christians. The son of Sarjun, his name is John Damascene, or John of Damascus. You know, the first book which was written as an insult and an argument to Islam was written by the son of Muawiyah's advisor. You can imagine the type of people that Muawiyah and Yazid kept in the court. And you know how insulting Sarjun's book was, his son's book was. Over there, he didn't say that Islam is a religion, but rather he said that they are the Ishmaelite heresy. In other words, this group is a bid'ah from Christianity, it is not a deen. These are the types of individuals you find that Muawiyah and Yazid keep as their advisor. And this Sarjun is the individual that after Muawiyah passes away, and Kufa is going towards the side of Muslim bin Aqil, Sarjuni says that send Ibn Ziyad for he will fortify the city. So you find this is the first example of a Christian in the rule of Muawiyah and Yazid. The second example is an individual by the name of Ghiyat ibn Ghawth. Ghiyat ibn Ghawth was titled Al-Akhtal, and this individual was the official poet of Banu Umayyad. That when the Muslims didn't want to lie about this family and make them great, you find that Banu Umayyah turned towards a Christian poet, and that Christian poet would be the spokesperson of Banu Umayyah, that he would write poetry in the praise of the Umayyads. You see, in early Islamic history, the reason we see that poetry is so emphasized at one level is because the poet was the voice of an ideology. That is why Ahlul Bayt would praise their poets in that time. When Banu Umayyah had their own poets, Ahlul Bayt would show the status of their poets. And one example of such a poet is Sayyid al-Himyari. You know, Sayyid al-Himyari wrote one of the most famous lines of Marthiyah over Imam al-Hussein. And that line, it said, Umrur ala jadat al-Hussein faqul li'a'dumih al-zakiyya. He said that when you go by the grave of Imam al-Hussein, stop by the grave and say, O Hussein, that we do not put water upon your grave, but our tears are sufficient. Ahlul Bayt would honor an individual, because on the other side, you found there were individuals who were using their voices against Ahlul Bayt. So you find this is the second example. The third example of a Christian that was used by the rule of Muawiyah and Yazid was an individual by the name of Ibn Utal or Ibn Atal. You know who Ibn Utal was? Ibn Utal was the toxicologist, that he was the doctor for Muawiyah and Yazid. And it stated that Yazid especially would enjoy drinking with Ibn Utal. You know, one thing that we see amongst Banu Umayyah is that they brought the Roman tradition of giving poison towards their enemies. That's why when Ammar ibn Yasir was poisoned, what did Muawiyah say? Muawiyah said that al-asal min junudillah, that honey is also from the army of Allah. And he said, now I have cut both arms of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You know, that individual who had made the poison or was behind this idea was a Christian individual. And in the same way, later on, you find this individual would also have a hand in the martyrdom of Imam al-Hassan, because Imam al-Hassan was administered poison as well. So you find this is the third example. But the fourth example of an individual in the rule of Banu Umayyah who was a Christian was the mother of Yazid and the wife of Muawiyah. You know, the mother of Yazid, her name was Maysoon ibn Bahdal. When we look at many of the lines of Yazid, we find that the lines of Yazid oftentimes in their poetry, they are rejecting Islam. And they're referring towards Christianity. For example, one of the famous lines of Yazid is that he's speaking about a girl. And he says, فَإِنْ حُرِّمَ عَلَيَّ عَلَى دِينِ أَحْمَدِ. If that girl is haram for me on the religion of Rasulullah, لَأَخَذْتُهَا عَلَى دِينِ الْمَسِيحِ ibn Maryam. That I will take her. I don't care about the Shariat of the Prophet Muhammad. I will take her in the name of Jesus, son of Mary. You see, that Christian influence is seen in the poetry of Yazid. And one of the most famous examples is when Sayyida Zainab was in that court. And when Sayyida Zainab was in the court of Yazid, he begins to recite his poetry. And he said, Layta ashyakhi bi badrin shahidu jaza al-khazraji min wakil asal. That if only my forefathers from Badr were here to see how we made the Khazraj go into panic. قَدْ قَتَلْنَا الْقَرْمِ مِنْ سَادَاتِكُمْ. We have killed the best of their individuals. فَأْدَلْنَا مَيْلَ بَدْرٍ فَأْتَدَلْ. And today we have taken revenge for Badr. You see, Yazid, there were other individuals whose forefathers fought in the Battle of Badr. But even Yazid recognized that if there is any compensation for Badr, it is the killing of Hussein. Because it was the father of Hussein on the day of Badr who killed 35 out of 70 individuals upon that day. But Badr at the end of the day was a battle between Islam and Kufr. And Yazid in his poetry has admitted that if there is anyone who represented Islam and his compensation for Badr, it is Hussein over there. And then he says, فَاسْتَهَلُّ فَاسْتَهَلُّ فَرَهًا ثُمَّ قَالَ يَا يَزِيدْ لَا تُشَلْ. That if my forefathers were here, they would rejoice. They would say, Yazid, may your body never become numb and paralyzed. لَعِبَتْ هَاشِمْ بِالْمُلْكِ وَلَا خَبَرٌ جَاءَ وَلَا وَحْيٌ نَزَلْ. Yazid says that Hashim, the children of Hashim, only played with the kingdom. There was no news for heaven, and there was no revelation which came down upon them. So you find when he says such lines of poetry, one of the reasons behind this is that he was brought up in a non-Muslim environment. And he was brought up in a Christian environment of those individuals who despised Islam. But in that reality, Allah, He shows time and time again that if there is a true representative of the deen of Isa and the message of Isa, it is Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. You know, after the day of Ashura, the head of Imam al-Hussein would go from Karbala to Kufa to Sham. And there would be a group of individuals who would carry the head. The narrator, Sulaiman ibn Mahran al-A'mash, he says, one day I saw a man in front of the Kaaba during the days of Hajj. And as he was by the Kaaba, he would say, Allahumma ghfirli, oh Allah, forgive me. Wa inni a'lamu annaka la taf'al. But I know you will never forgive me. Sulaiman ibn Mahran says that, oh man, you are in front of the Kaaba. It is the days of Hajj. Allah will forgive everything. Why are you not asking for forgiveness? That man says, Wa inna hada danbi adim, my sin is great. The man says, is it bigger than these mountains? He says, it's bigger than these mountains. He says, tell me what you did. The man says, I cannot tell you in front of the Kaaba. I'll tell you outside of the Kaaba. That man, he narrates that we were 40 individuals under the command of Umar ibn Sa'ad. And we were commanded to take the head of Hussein. And as we were taking the head of Hussein, we passed by a monastery where a Christian man, he comes out. And the Christian man says that I see that there is nur and light coming from this forehead. None of us, we saw that nur. But that individual, he saw that nur, he saw that light. So the Christian man says, who is this? Man hada? Whose head is this? They say, Harabna al-Hussein. We fought Hussein and this is the head of Hussein. The man immediately, he says, Ibnu binti nabiyakum? Is this the son of the daughter of your prophet? And he says, Wallahi, لو كان لعيسى ابن مريم ابنا لحملناه على أهداكنا. He says, by Allah, tabban lak, that you people are wretched. If Jesus, son of Mary, had a son, we would place him over our eyes. Yet you killed the son of the daughter of your prophet. He says, I'll give you 10,000 dinar. They were given to me as an inheritance. All I want in return is that you give me this head for one night. He takes the head of Imam al-Hussein. He puts kafur on it. He places it within a cloth. You know, those people, they say, when we came back, we saw him speaking to the head. And as he spoke to the head, he said, Ya Ras, O head, Wallah, by Allah, La amliku illa nafsi. The only thing that I have is myself. Washhad inda jaddika Muhammad anni ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulallah wa ana aslamtu ala yadayka wa ana mawlaka. He says that I bear witness, that for me bear witness when you're in front of your grandfather Muhammad tomorrow, that I bear witness that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger and I am your lover. You see, Imam al-Hussein, only the Warith of Isa can give hidayat like Abu Abdullah. That this Christian monk, when he sees the head of Imam al-Hussein, he comes to the path of Islam. No, another incident, it says that there was a Catholic priest in the court of Yazid. And he runs into the court of Yazid. And he says, Oh Yazid, who is this? Yazid says, this is the head of Hussein. He says that I saw a dream when I was within my monastery, that a man was coming down. There were angels that were surrounding him. So I said to that man that, who are you? He said that I am Muhammad. And these angels are coming with me to mourn over my Hussein who has been killed. When he said this, Yazid ordered the execution of that man. So you see, this is Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein is that individual, no matter what background you come from, this is the power of Abu Abdullah. And that's why when we look at the Shuhada on the day of Ashura, we find that there was even one individual who came from Christianity to Islam because of Abu Abdullah. And you find that individual is Wahab ibn Wahab al-Kalbi. You know, Wahab ibn Wahab al-Kalbi, it's stated that he comes with his mother. And he goes and he fights on the day of Ashura. And he comes back after a while and he says to his mother, Oh, my mother, are you pleased with me? The mother of Wahab says, No, I'm not pleased with you. Wahab says, Why aren't you pleased with me? She says, I'll become pleased with you when you're shaheed for Hussein. You see, only a number of days ago, this lady and this man were Christians. But when they accepted Islam, they recognized who Abu Abdullah was. And indeed, upon this day of the 2nd of Muharram, they came to the land of Karbala. You know, when Imam al-Hussein came to the land of Karbala, the tribe of Banu Asad was there. And he says to them, Masmu hadihil ard, that what is the name of this land? They say Ghadiriya. The Imam says, Alaha ismun akhar, does it have another name? They say its name is Nainawa. The Imam says, is there another name? They say Shattul Furat. The Imam asks again, and they say Karbun wa Bala. That this is the land of musibat, this is the land of mushkilat, this is the land of trials and tribulation. The Imam, he purchases the land from Banu Asad. And then he looks towards the men of Banu Asad and he says that if no one buries us, then bury our bodies that lay upon the desert. But you know what Imam al-Hussein does after that? He looks towards the women of of Banu Asad, that how alone was Sayyid al-Shuhada. He says that if your men don't bury us, if they're scared, then you bury us. But then after that, the Imam, he looks towards the children of Banu Asad and he says that as you're on the desert, I know you won't be able to bury us, but at least put dust upon our bodies. You know, this was the 2nd of Muharram, but I take you towards the 13th of Muharram when the bodies of the Shuhada were upon the land of Karbala. And the tribe of Banu Asad, they would be watching all of the bodies. And as they're watching the bodies, a man, he comes and he says, "Oh Banu Asad, I'll tell you how to bury these Shuhada." He says, "Make one grave for the companions." They begin to bury the companions. But you know, as they're burying the companions, they say, "Oh man, there's one body by the Furat. When we pick up one side of the body, the other side it falls to the ground. And when we pick the other side of the body, the other side it begins to break and fall." The Imam says, "That is the body of my Chacha Abbas. I'll bury that body." Then after that, he says that, "Oh Banu Asad, he puts a cloth on the ground. He gathers the pieces of his father." But you know, as he's burying Imam al-Hussein, it's stated in one riwayah that a voice begins to come from the cut body of Abu Abdullah. And you know what that voice it would say? It would say, "Tifli, Tifli," that where is the infant? Imam Zainul Abidin says, "Oh Banu Asad, where is the 6-month Ali Asghar?" He places Ali Asghar on the chest of Abu Abdullah. But you know, when he places Ali Asghar, the head of Ali Asghar wasn't upon his body. It's stated on the night of Sham-e Ghariba, the army of Umar bin Saad was gathering the heads one by one. And as they were gathering the heads, they said, "Where is the head of the 6-month infant?" One individual, he says that Hussein had buried him. It stated that 4 horse riders, they begin to go towards the tents of Ahlul Bayt. And as they're going towards the tents of Ahlul Bayt, you know what they were doing? They would take their arrows, they would place it into the ground, but one point it goes, when the neza, the arrow, it goes into the ground. On the other side was the body of Ali Asghar. Sayyidah Zainab says, "Rabab, turn your face away." They take the dagger, the neck of Ali Asghar. Ala la'natullah lil-qawm al-zalimin. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أيّ منقلب ينقلبون. Ya Allah, wherever the followers of Ahlul Bayt are in difficulty, help them. Wherever they're sick and ailing, cure them. Ya Allah, grant us the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. Grant us the shafa of Imam al-Hussein. Allow us to see the return of the one who will avenge Karbala. As we say in Dua Nudba, أين الطالب بالدم المقتول بكربلاء ماتم حسين.
असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ, आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यार प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ। मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो, मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो, सीने तुम्हें लगाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। बेटा तुम्हारा कातिल मेरे सामने खड़ा है, जाने क्यों हंस रहा है। चादर भी लुट चुकी है, मुंह किस तरह छुपाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। तेरे झूले को सकीना रो रो के चूमती है, तुझे घर में ढूंढती है। तेरी मौत की खबर मैं कैसे उसे सुनाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। नेज़े से गिर रहा है नन्हा सा सर तुम्हारा, दिल रोता है हमारा। मेरे हाथ तो बंधे हैं, सर किस तरह उठाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। मेरी जान जा रही है ये सोच सोच, असगर इस फूल से गले पर ये तीर कैसे झेला, बहनों को क्या बताऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। झूले के साथ बेटा मेरे हाथ जल गए हैं, जालिम भी हंस रहे हैं। तेरी आखिरी निशानी किस तरह से बचाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, असगर मैं तेरी माँ हूँ। आ जाओ चांद मेरे, तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं, करबला वाले बयाबां में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में क़यामत की फिज़ा छाई है ज़हरा के गुलिस्तान में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में कहाँ हो है अली अकबर ज़रा आवाज़ तो देना कहाँ हो है अली अकबर ज़रा आवाज़ तो देना अकेला रह गया है फातिमा का लाल मैदान में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में लूटा जो करबला में मुसलमानों ने क्या लूटा लूटा जो करबला में मुसलमानों ने क्या लूटा अली की बेटियों की चादरें आई है सामा में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में मोहम्मद के घराने पर ये कैसा इम्तिहान आया मोहम्मद के घराने पर ये कैसा इम्तिहान आया अली की बेटियां है साल के बाद भी जिंदा में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में कहाँ हो है अली अकबर ज़रा आवाज़ तो देना कहाँ हो है अली अकबर ज़रा आवाज़ तो देना अकेला रह गया है फातिमा का लाल मैदान में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में मोहम्मद का घराना करबला वाले बयाबां में
ज़हरा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का ज़हरा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का ज़हरा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का प्यासे काबे वतन का प्यासे काबे वतन का शहे मशरक़ैन का ज़हरा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का ज़हरा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का जब माहे मुहर्रम ने खबर गम की सुनागी करके बकैया का ये मोमिन ने सगागी तशरीफ लाए फरिशे तशरीफ लाए फरिशे गया ज़रा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का ज़रा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का मजलूम के गम में हुई मगमूम खुदाई फिर नाम पे प्यासों के शबीले में लगाई घर घर में हो घर घर में हुसैन की घर घर में गए हुसैन की गुर्बत का तज़किरा ज़रा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का ज़रा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का हर मोड़ पे गारश जो रखा बिनते अली की वो जिसकी शहादत पे कमर शकी झुकी थी उसी शेर के कटे हुए उसी शेर के कटे हुए शानों का वाशिका ज़रा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का ज़रा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का आई जो मदीने में वो जिंदा से पलक कर घर जाने से पहले गई मागर की लहद पर ज़ैनब ने माँ की कब्र पे ज़ैनब ने माँ की कब्र पे की पहली ये सदा ज़रा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का ज़रा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का जीगे ना दिया उसको मुसलमानों ने बीबी पाला था जिसे आपने मानो से बीबी हाय रुला रुला के हाय रुला रुला के उसे ज़िब्गा कर गया ज़रा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का ज़रा कबूल कीजिए पुरसा हुसैन का हुसैन 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 हुसैन
जहाँ पंजतने पाक सदका इस कौम का दामन गम शब्बीर से भर दे। बच्चों को अता कर अली असगर का तबस्सुम, बूढ़ों को हबीब इब्न मज़ाहिर की नजर दे। कम सिन को मिलाए वलवलाए ओन मोहम्मद, हर एक जवान को अली अकबर का जिगर दे। माओ को सिखा आसानी ज़हरा का सलीका, बहनों को सकीना की दुआओं का असर दे। मौला तुझे ज़ैनब की असीरी की कसम है, बेजुर्म असीरों को रिहाई की खबर दे। जो चादर ज़ैनब जज़ार मौला महफूज रहे से ख़वातीन के पर्दे। जो दीन के काम आए वलात अता कर, तो मुझसे शब्बीर की खातिर हो कर दे। मुफ्लिस पर लाल जवार की बारिश, मखरूज का हर कर्ज अदा गैब से कर दे। गम कोई ना दे हमको सिवाय गम शब्बीर, गम कोई ना दे हमको सिवाय गम शब्बीर। शब्बीर का गम बांट रहा है तो इधर दे। नारे हैदरी